Hello YouTube, welcome back to another alternate history video. And today I got the 2004 presidential election, which of course was held between incumbent President George W. Bush and Democrat John Kerry, Senator from Massachusetts. But in this alternate scenario here, you see I got Al Gore, the Vice President under Clinton, who was the 2000 nominee and lost a very narrow election in the Electoral College to Bush. Of course, Bush, I believe, got 271 votes to Gore's 266, so that shows you how close it was. And Bush barely edged him out. Of course, Gore won the popular vote, but Bush got about, I think, 500 more votes than Gore in Florida, and that's what gave Bush the win. And of course, it went to the Supreme Court and all that. It was a big controversy, but they ruled in favor of Bush, so he got the win. However, like I said, in this alternate scenario, I got Gore if he decided to run again and get the nomination in 2004. Of course, a lot of his supporters and media people was wondering if he was going to run again, but he decided not to. However, like I said, I do got him as nominee if he did decide to run again. Now, of course, 2004, of course, it came off Bush's first term, and we had the Iraq War. I think the economy was doing all right, but the Iraq War was definitely the dominant theme of the campaign. And Bush presented himself as a strong leader, but Kerry was criticizing him, saying it was going to lead to disaster. I think Kerry actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think he actually did vote for the Iraq invasion, but he said Bush was doing it kind of wrong and there was a better way of doing it, like diplomatically, I believe. But Bush was able to edge out Kerry in the election to get the win, as he did have a little favorability with the war at first, of course, until it got out of hand as the years went on and the recession hit in 2008. So that made Bush's popularity go down, but his popularity was pretty decent, I guess, in 2004, so he was able to convince the American people to re-elect him. But like I said, I do got Gore as a nominee here, and I believe it would be pretty similar to 2000. I think Bush would probably still have the edge here. I think Gore maybe could win a state or two that Kerry didn't, being more of a moderate and winning them in 2000. However, I believe it would be pretty similar to the actual 04 map and look similar to the 2000 map as well. Because I believe Bush would just have the edge since he presented himself as strong on Iraq and he was telling the American people he was handling well and presented Kerry as too liberal. However, like I said, Gore being more moderate, I could see him doing winning a state or two that Kerry didn't. But anyway, let's get into it. Now, Washington, Oregon, California. California wasn't close. I believe that would go Gore, of course. However, Oregon definitely was close, but Gore and Kerry was able to do better in the suburbs like Portland, while Bush did great in the rural areas. So I think the state would still edge out Gore, since him and Kerry both did win in the actual scenarios because of the suburbs. And I believe it would take Washington. Bush did pretty decent in the state too, but it was a bigger margin than Oregon, so I believe it would hang on to Gore. However, I believe Bush, of course, would take the states of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Dick Cheney's home state, as well as Utah, the Mormon Belt. Now, Nevada, they go for Bush both times because he had a great appeal in the rural and suburban part of Nevada and with Latinos, especially before he had great support with Latinos because he was able to win like New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, and Nevada. He won all these states. So I believe he would hang on to Nevada in this case because of that Latino support, as well as Colorado and Arizona. And Gore did win New Mexico in 2000, but it was a very close state. I believe it was decided by only like 300 and some votes. It was actually closer in Florida, believe it or not. Even though Florida decided the election, but New Mexico, I believe, was actually the closest state in the election. However, since Bush did great with Latinos, like I said, in 04 upped up his strength because of his moderate stances on immigration. I believe Bush would win New Mexico in this case like he did against Kerry. Maybe Gore could still win it, but I just think since Bush definitely improved on his Latino numbers in 04, he would take it in this case because of his being very moderate to liberal in immigration. And I believe it would take the Dakotas as well, of course, all these Midwestern states, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and his home state of Texas, as well as Alaska. I believe Gore would take Hawaii, however, of course, and Minnesota. That wasn't really contested, I don't think. And Wisconsin, Michigan were close states. I'll come back to those. I believe Bush would win Missouri. I think it was actually kind of close in 04. It wasn't as close as 08, but I believe would still edge out Bush since he did win it both times, as well as the Deep South here, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. And I believe if he would win Gore, some say Tennessee again, like he did in 2000. Of course, Gore made it close being from here, but Bush still edged him out with a little better support, like in the cities and rural parts. But of course, both of them did great in the rural areas. However, I believe since Gore couldn't win in 2000, we'll go Bush in this case again in 04, as well as Kentucky and West Virginia, which was a Democratic state at one point, very working class. A lot of coal miners went for Democrats for a lot of years, but then they started shifting towards Republicans when it went Republican in 2000 for Bush. So I believe we'll go for him as well in this case. And my home state, Virginia, I believe we'll go for him. Of course, Bush did good statewide rural parts, but Gore, I guess, could do pretty decent rural too, but definitely Bush had a better appeal in the suburbs than Republicans do today. And Virginia Beach and Henrico, Chesterfield, Bush had great support, so I believe he would hang on to Virginia and North Carolina as well. It was a pretty big margin, I think, for Bush in 04. It wasn't as contested as 2000, so I believe they would hang on to him, as well as South Carolina and Georgia and Indiana up here. I believe Gore would take these states over up here: New York, Vermont, all of Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and D.C. Now the rest of these states and Illinois here, Bush actually was pretty semi-competitive in Illinois because he did pretty good in the Cook County suburbs, but it was still a pretty solid win for Kerry, so I believe that would go Gore as well. And now, like I was saying about these other states, these battleground states like they were in 2000, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa. I'm going to go to Iowa first. Gore did win in 2000. Him and Bush both had a great appeal in the rural areas and cities, but Gore did have a slight edge in the state. It was close both times. Like I said, did go Bush over Kerry, but it was very narrow. And however, go Gore in 2000, like I said. And I believe in that case, I actually would go Gore. I could still say maybe going Bush, but I think since Gore had better appeal in the rural part of Iowa, I think it would win in this case against Bush like it did in 2000. However, Ohio was a state that went for Bush both times, as he edged out in the rural areas. Well, Gore and Kerry had better appeal in the cities like Cincinnati and places like that. But since it did go for Bush both times, I believe we'll go for him in this case. Wisconsin, Michigan didn't go for Bush either times. They did go for Gore and Kerry because they both had great appeal with unions. However, Bush did have good appeal in these states too, especially in the rural parts and wild counties. However, since it did edge out for Democrats both times, I believe it would go Gore in this case because of the union vote. And Pennsylvania here was another state that went for Gore. It was another close state. And they go for Kerry too, so I believe for the same reason it would edge out Gore in this case because of the Philadelphia suburbs. And New Hampshire was a state that actually went for Bush in 2000. It did, however, go for Kerry in 2004 because he was from Massachusetts. So he definitely had a great appeal in the state, especially with college educated. But Bush also a great support of college educated too. And since it did go for Bush in 2000 and Kerry not being on the ticket, I could actually see it flipping back to Bush in this case. I could see it going either way, definitely, but I think with Kerry being off the ticket, I think Bush would have the edge here since he was able to win in 2000 with college educated. Being a moderate state, it was a Rockefeller Republican state at one point. And this just leaves the state of Florida, which is going to decide this election like it did in 2000. Of course, it was a very close state in 2000. Like I said, separated by 500 votes. I believe, however, in 2004, it was at least like a 4 or 5 point margin. I'm going to look up and see what the exact margin was. It was definitely a bigger margin, like I said, in 2000, because Bush had the incumbency advantage, and Florida loves to vote for incumbents usually. So I'm going to look at Florida here. So yeah, it was a 5.1 margin, 0.1 margin for Bush, and because of that, I believe it would go for him in this case against Gore. It would probably be a little closer, maybe by 2 or 3 points, but I believe it would still edge out Bush because of being the incumbent. So anyway, here's the final map with Bush being the victor. getting 283 to Gore's 255. I believe it says the exact 2000 map, just with a few more electoral votes for Bush and Gore, because in 2004 some of these states did lose some electoral votes. Like I think California actually gained one, and then Ohio, I believe, either lost or gained some. So that's the exact 2000 map, just with a different number of electoral votes. Like I said, because some of these states either lost or gained some. Like I said, there's the final map. If you like this video, just like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on this scenario, if you agree or not. I thank you for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications if you haven't. And I'll see you next time.